All set? Great. We'd like to welcome everybody for today's commission meeting. And we will begin with a prayer reading or thought by a volunteer, after which we've asked for a volunteer to provide a pledge of allegiance. We have one for the prayer. Is anyone here for a pledge of allegiance? Eric, thank you. Reverend?
Thank you. Commissioners, I am the Reverend J. Keith Couples, pastor of Provo Community Congregational United Church of Christ. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the privilege of opening this meeting with prayer. Shall we pray? Almighty God, we gather today in the glow of yesterday's convocation on the state of Utah County. With joy, humility, and gratitude, we celebrate the abundance of blessing poured out upon us as you open the windows of heaven for us. With the confidence of your blessing, we thank you, Lord, that those blessed took on the privilege and responsibility to bless through their leadership Utah County. Today, Lord, having experienced the taste of glory, we are empowered by the hope shared to begin and yet continue to act with great boldness, not boldness with timidity or embarrassment or belligerence that willingly pulls a veil over the face of success, but with humility and contrition, we pull the veil from our faces to accept the privilege and challenge of building upon the successes of yesterday to create and build the successes of tomorrow. Lord, we have seen the future and realize there is much work to do as this court prepares to serve the residents of Utah County, as well as those coming, both sooner and later, to take advantage of a community proud to offer hope, neighborliness, and hospitality. We know the road is long, with many a winding turn, and we know that at times the strength of leadership will wane. We also know that our strength comes from and is renewed by knowing the people feel served and listened to. So remind us, Heavenly Father, that though we can see the future arrived at as we take one step at a time, until keeping our eyes focused on the prize, glory will have turned to glory, success to success, and community to community. So we pray for our commissioners and they for us. In the name of grace and peace, in the name of grace and that is amazing and peace that passes understanding, even Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend.
Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll we'll start out by going through the agenda and see which ones we can approve for consent. And we'll start with agenda items 1 through 10. Are there any that either commissioner feels we should hold for the regular agenda?
For discussion purposes, I think we should hold number 7 and then also number 9.
Okay.
I've got no others.
And I was informed earlier that number 10 should continue for 1 week because there's some nuances that are not yet completed. So without objection, we'll move that to consent to be continued 1 week. Okay, 11 through 20.
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
And I don't have any. Okay, then 21 through 30.
On number 30, and if I could say 30 and 31, I wouldn't mind leaving that on consent that and just state that we have reviewed and that we're taking action to continue that for another 20 years.
Okay.
We're fine with doing that.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah,
that.
I'm fine with that.
Number 32 is similar. It has as the last item to do this exact same thing, continue for additional 20 years.
Pink.
I think
That's
we need to hold that
32
one.
is, yeah, that one's different.
Yeah, 32 is a different one.
Okay, so we'll hold that one.
Yeah, we'll hold that one.
Okay. So on the way through, I believe we'll have to review, do we have to review number 34?
I do have one item on 34 that I'd like to discuss.
You have one, Commissioner Gardner? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll hold that one.
On number 36, do we need to do anything on that one?
It's just a
That's just the
vacancy.
notice of vacancy to start the
Okay, so then-
process. I think we're fine, just.
Okay, so we're fine to leave that on consent?
I don't have any others through 38, 39, 40, 41. 41 was, it's tied to funding, and if it's not functioning, that they'll pull it back. So a discussion needs to be had on 41.
No, I'm fine with both
Did we
40
hold
and 41.
41 and 40? Just
Hold
for,
40 and 41 both?
no,
okay.
Chris is here to talk to
Okay.
him.
I think there was one other. Did I miss one? Okay, I think, and do we have any items for closed session?
I don't have any.
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering, there, on 39, there's multiple documents. There was a document that we have here on our desk. If we approve of that, it might be nice for us to approve of it with the most current document. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Ben?
Yes.
Instead of having all kinds of documents on there.
Yeah.
I don't mind leaving it on consent. I'm just wondering if,
Yeah, 39 is the North Fork agreement. We have some, is that the one you're looking at?
Yes.
Or are you looking at 38, which is the ordinance of the county code?
39.
The North Fork Well interlocal.
Yes, that one shouldn't have a lot of documents, but there was a discussion just today with the clerk auditor's office. There's a recommendation that we include some language about what we call sub-recipient monitoring requirements. We had a recommended language that was provided by Peter Brown, who works in that grant department, and so we integrated that language into the version that should be in your agenda system.
Okay.
But Deneen has suggested maybe even some other language would be helpful. So that one could be, we could have a discussion on that one, or we could approve it subject to finalization of the monitoring language, or we could approve it based on the language that was recommended from Peter Brown, whatever the commissioners would like to do with that one. But there has been some discussion in the agenda system about sub-recipient monitoring language for that one, and so we could continue to we could approve it subject to finalizing that language, or accept the language that was recommended by a grant administrator, whatever you commissioners are most comfortable with.
maybe we should hold that for discussion. That'd
Yeah.
probably be the
Let's do
easiest.
that.
Okay,
That'd be great. Thank you. So we'll hold 39, 40, and 41. No closed items, so 42, 43, 44, and 45 are all stricken. Confirmed. Okay. So strike those last four.
It's like a first time ever, probably.
I know, I kind of held my breath a little. I was like, real?
Okay. I think that does it. Maureen, would you read over?
Okay, I
do?
show us holding 7, 9, continuing 10 for 1 week. 30 and 31, we're leaving on consent and taking action that you're approving it for an additional 20 years. Holding 32, 34, 39, 40, 41, and striking 42, 43, 44, and 45.
Okay, thank you. That's what and contradictions to any of that. Okay. Okay, the first item we have before we go into our regular agenda is the work session for the update on a Camp Floyd State Park. Someone here to represent that.
Yes, and I brought this forward, and so just a little back history on it. We've been going back and forth with Camp Floyd over the years, talking, excuse me, about what they're doing, and it was suggested maybe to have another work session on them because we've also looked at TRCC funding and some things that can be done there, and so it'd be nice to maybe have an update of what's going on with Camp Floyd.
Well, thank you. My name is Clay Shelley. I'm the park manager at Camp Floyd State Park, and we've been asked to give an annual update to our county commissioners each year, and so I thank you for the opportunity to be here for this. I did bring a PowerPoint with some of the things from last year that we were able to do. Looks like they're bringing that up right now. And so, I get a clicker. I'll figure out how to use it. Okay, so our visitation. Last 2 years we've been hit pretty hard with COVID, and our visitation has dropped with all the programmings and different things we weren't able to do. From July 2020 to June 2021, we had 6,043 visitors. Normally, we're up to 15 to 20,000. So far this year, from July 1st to January, we are at 54. So we've almost got the whole last year's visitation all in just the first few months. So things are looking better. We're able to do a lot more of our programs and stuff out there now. One of the programs we do are school groups. We weren't able to do a lot of school groups last year. COVID shut us down till about May. And then we were allowed to do school groups if they contacted us, but we couldn't let anybody know we were doing school groups, so that was kind of hard. So we only were able to do 25 school programs last year, but that was 2,424 students that came through Camp Floyd and learned about the history of Fairfield, Camp Floyd, and the military out there. So those students have a wonderful, enjoyable time, and we're always told when they leave it was one of the best field trips they've ever had. So we're excited. This year, we have 2 days in April open, and May is completely full, so it's gonna be a busy next couple months. We had 5 events. One of the things with COVID last year is we were not allowed to do programs till June 1st. So 2 of our big events, April and May, we weren't able to do. But we were able to do 5 events. Big Cowboy Poetry Gathering that we do every July was one of them with the stagecoach and the music there. We were able to do our Camp Floyd Days in September and our Military Appreciation Day in August. And a couple others, our Camp Floyd Christmas celebration. And so we had good turnouts for those, record numbers for the different things that we've had. So we're building our visitation. People are getting to know a little bit more about Camp Floyd and coming out there. We only were able to do 3 day camps this last year, but each one of those were completely full. And we were turning visitors away. So we're back up to 5 day camps this coming season. Hopefully we'll be able to fill all of those. These are 3 days that the kids get to come out and become part of Johnston's Army, learn about them and learn about the story of Camp Floyd. And so they really enjoy that, and it's usually every year they're completely booked. Concerts. One of the things I started when I went out there in 2018 was a summer concert series. And we were able to do 3 concerts last year that were well attended. We have the Benson Sisters is one of the favorite ones. They do World War II era music, and we bring them out during our Military Appreciation Day, which is a timeline of U.S. military history from Revolutionary War up through modern. Last year, we were able to have even the Utah National Guard represented, so we had the present-day military represented as well out there, and that was a great event. We did 7 interpretive programs last year. Don't get a lot of pictures of these because I'm usually doing the interpretive programs and I can't take pictures of myself doing the programs. But the only thing we were not able to do last year were our campfire programs with fire restrictions, but we're able to do our lantern tours and our interpretive programs and discussions and different things. So that turned out pretty good. We've got twice as many scheduled for this year. A few more pictures of some of the programs. We're able to get some hand carts, and that's some of the funnest things out there for the kids is to have races with their parents with the hand carts as they're going through. And of course, the first picture there is our Santa Claus. The line was, if any of you have been out to Camp Floyd, the line was from our new stage all the way to the pavilion. There was that many people out there waiting in line to see Santa Claus. And it was a beautiful day. It was like 50 degrees that day, and that's the 1st of December. Some of the new additions that we've been lucky to have. We have a new CXT restroom at the cemetery, which allows us to do some more of our star parties and different things out there. We finished our stage for our summer concert series, and we're able to do an outdoor kitchen for cooking displays. And we've actually been contacted by someone to do pioneer cooking classes with our new our outdoor kitchen. And then, of course, one of the things I did was bring in an ice machine. We had lots of people asking us where they could get ice coming from 5 Mile. And there was nowhere for 12 miles to pick up ice with the gas station closed in Cedar Fort. So we bought a little ice freezer, and it's been nonstop between the campers at 5 Mile, and there's quite a few homeless people out there camping on a 5 Mile area, and they would come in and pick up their ice each week to keep their food cool while they were out there camping. So that was probably my biggest thing. The best thing I did was bring in the ice machine. But we thank you for your support on what we're doing. Some of the things that we have coming up is right now, if you've been out to the restroom out there at Camp Floyd, it is horrible. It's being torn down right now. We have a brand new building being built this summer. And of course, the museum we've been working on with Commissioner Lee for quite a few years with Fairfield Town. We're still working on that. Fairfield Town was able to get some funding from the state, and they're doing the archaeological clearance and everything right now currently. We're working on an agreement with Fairfield that we, as a state park, would run the museum for them. So we're finalizing that right now. And Brad is hoping to, the mayor of Fairfield is hoping to start building within the next couple months. And so this would be a combination of town hall, where Fairfield does not have a building at all out there, and then the museum portion of it. And so the expansion of Camp Floyd is going well. Visitation's picking up. I guess it kind of helps when Eagle Mountain just keeps building. We've got thousands of new residents that are able to come out and enjoy. You know, if you haven't been to Camp Floyd before, it tells the story of Johnson's Army in the Utah War, and not too many people remember a lot about the Utah War. And so we get that opportunity to tell that story through all these programs. I did send in 7 pages of events that are coming up for this year. So you're welcome to come out anytime. There's about the event, a little bit of information. There's right up there now. We do have 3 good concerts scheduled for this year. So once a month we do a concert there on the lawn, and we have all these events. We're adding to the programs each and every year and adding more things. So encourage you to come out, visit us, see what we have to offer. And next year the report should be a lot bigger because we'll have people coming and programs going on. And we had a little staff meeting this morning before I came here. My employees just said, I hope we survive April and May because we're looking at all those school kids that are coming in. It averages between 100 and 150 students per day. And they're pretty much full every Monday through Friday through April and May. So, but thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Do you have any questions at all about?
I do have a question.
Yes.
We were looking at the memorabilia for the Punt Press. Is that opportunity still viable? Because I know it was coming out of California, and so we were trying to maneuver so that we could get some of that
Yes.
memorabilia coming in this direction. Is that still a possibility?
It's a possibility from what I'm being told. Joe Nardoni passed away.
Okay.
And so when Brad the mayor of Fairfield gave his widow a few weeks to get through the funeral, and then he sent her an email, and she had no idea of the agreement, and he sent her all of the emails, all the correspondence and everything. Right now, it's there's still a possibility, but she's trying to decide whether she wants to give it up or not.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but one way or the other, that museum will be full because it will be telling the story. It'll be an expansion. If you've been to our current little museum, which is about 20 feet by 15 feet, it's a big improvement to what we currently have. And we have boxes upon boxes of artifacts up at Fort Douglas that we can't display because we do not have the space. So it'll be a great opportunity one way or the other, whether we get the donation from California or not, we'll be able to have a great museum.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And you were mentioning state funds, because I had talked to the mayor a couple of times about that. Curious about the progress.
It was, the funding they got was a grant through Arts and Museums, so it was funneled through Utah Division of Arts and Museums. They changed their granting system to do operational grants, which benefited the museum. So the town received a grant for $350,000, and the first part of that is all the archaeology, making sure that they're not destroying any of the historical site by putting the building in there. And then the rest of the money filters in to help building the museum. And
So half is just for research, preservation.
it depends on whether they find anything or not. So they're doing ground penetrating radar, and if they find anything, then they'll have to start moving the building or finding where they can put it. If they don't find anything, they can move forward. The area that they are looking at putting the museum was an area where the artillery was, so it was mainly cannons. So the hope from the town is that there won't be anything found there, because most of the buildings were further back.
Okay.
And so if that comes through, they're looking for funding through the grants for the museum portion, and then the town's paying for the town building portion of it. And so that'll all be combined into one building.
Okay. Thank you.
So I actually had not ever been to Camp Floyd, so I was just looking it up and scrolling through, and it looks fantastic. And I want to know why my 6 children and I haven't been there yet. So I will absolutely come out and visit you, and I will bring my half a dozen crew with me.
Right.
Because I've got 4 boys who would absolutely love that. And I saw that you have ghost tours in October, and I won't be on that, but my husband and boys will, because they love that. So
Well, I
thank you.
added a
Yeah.
5th one because we were turning people away. All 4 of them were so booked up we couldn't do. So we added a Friday one to see what that happens this year. So that is a popular event.
Yeah, I saw that, and it looked like the summer camps you have and the educational. I think it all looked absolutely fantastic. So Commissioner Lee, thank you for inviting him. And I grew up in this county and didn't know it was there. So I'll definitely bring my family out and take advantage of.
I think 90% of Utah counties driven past it on the way to 5 Mile.
Right.
And the only way we're getting people to stop now is I put a banner out on the road that says snacks and cold drinks.
Nice.
And so they're pulling in to buy snacks and cold drinks. And so, like the winter months,
Ice, apparently.
90% of our visitors in the winter months are stopping for a snack or cold drink or even ice cream still, or using the restroom there and then driving on. So,
Well, as the Cedar Valley starts to fill up more with homes, I'm sure you'll get a lot more people there. So
it's going to continue to grow. That was our struggle during COVID is, Utah State Parks had record years, but we didn't have any lakes or golf courses and so our visitation went down because the majority of our visitation are school groups and off the events. And when you're cut off from the events you can do and the schools aren't registering because they're not allowed to go on field trips, it hurts the heritage parks. But we're picking up now. Hopefully it just keeps going the way it's going so we can keep doing these programs, and we'll be there for another 30, 40 years. Well, I'll be there another 30, 40 years doing programs.
Sounds good.
So.
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Then we'll go now move into our regular agenda, into item number 7. Approve and adopt an ordinance amending Article 2, Tac 5 of the Utah County Code related to campaign financial disclosures. I had not seen a red line version, so I'm curious on the content. I hadn't, just the need to compare.
Well, I don't believe there is a red line version. Commissioner, this is Paul Jones from the Attorney's Office. And yeah, my understanding is that this got drafted without a red line.
What are the differences between the current and the proposed? What are the highlights?
Great. Yeah, sorry about the no red line version. There are some additions and some updates. It looks like it's been a number of years since this was updated.
Last
And-
one was signed by Gary Herbert when he was a commissioner.
There you go.
It needs to be updated, for sure.
Yeah, so state code does require that we have a county ordinance that complies with the state code requirements on campaign financial disclosures. And a couple of the areas that were needed to be updated is state code requires that you have a separate bank account from your personal bank account to deposit your campaign contributions into, and there's no commingling of personal funds and campaign funds. And so we added that requirement into our county ordinance, that you have a separate bank account. Another requirement in the state code is that for any contribution that is anonymous and exceeds $50, those actually must be donated either to the county or to a 501c3. So, as our political candidates receive, like I said, anonymous donations that exceed $50, they're not allowed to use those in their campaign, and they have to be donated.
And that's in 2 Tac 5, Tac 4, limitations of contributions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds
I guess
right.
has there been problems with that? Because I always thought that was the case. So,
Well,
is anything
personally, I
over
don't know there's
50?
any problems with any of this.
I
It's
don't
just
think there
that-
have been any
yeah.
problems. It's just that our county code
Yeah.
was not in line with the state code, but as candidates, everybody followed the state code.
Because we all know up to the $50,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Well,
I
over
don't know,
that,
but-
you're scrambling to get, addresses and everything
Right.
else.
Right.
To my knowledge, it hasn't been an issue. When I was clerk, we went back and looked and we didn't see any that we had that issue. It's just that it wasn't prescribed in our code and it was in the state code. But it's not that it's been an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know that there have been issues with any of these additions. Just simply, I think the clerk's office wanted to get the ordinance up to date.
So one of them, and you can refresh my memory if I'm wrong with it, but it says on the campaign financial disclosures, each filing entity for elected office that participates in a county convention as a candidate shall file campaign financial statements containing that, and this is 7 days before the convention. I don't remember that. I don't remember doing that. Is that new?
I think that is new.
Yes, that is
Okay.
new.
Yeah, yeah. So
Which I think is a good thing, because
Yeah.
there's too many times when you go through a convention and it's all the way to a primary and you don't have to file anything, and somebody gets eliminated at convention, you're like, wonder where the
Right, so-
financial disclosures. So
Right.
I think it's a good
Right.
Yeah.
a good change. The only thing I'd add though is that I noticed that when I was reading through it after the primary, if you get eliminated on a primary, you have 30 days to file a form, stating that, your disclosures again, but we don't have that after convention.
And I think the reason why is just because in state law, it didn't require that. And I think that they weren't looking to do more than state law. They were looking to go to the minimum of state law with the minimum number of changes.
Okay.
And that's the only reason why.
Yeah, because I saw that and I thought, interesting. You don't have to.
But
do
you're
it
right, that
after,
is an
but-
inconsistency.
Yeah.
well,
I don't think
actually,
it's a
if you
bad
look down
inconsistency.
in section F,
In F.
Page 3 of 6.
we kind of did a little catch-all there. This is in the draft ordinance, so 2-5-3 sub F. That was a catch-all requiring every candidate that's eliminated, withdrawn, or disqualified at any point to submit to submit 30 days after they're eliminated or withdrawn or disqualified. So that is kind of a catch-all. So it would apply to anybody eliminated at the convention or the primary or anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, I read through this whole
Yeah.
thing and I didn't catch that. I mean,
We
I
could
just
add
kind of,
that,
I
or-
think for just, you know how it is. You
Yeah.
don't want somebody coming back and saying, oh, for crying out loud. I mean, you throw it down here. Why don't you put
Yeah.
it consistent with the other? It seems like it should be consistent with the language above.
Yeah, so we could add a new B and drop everything else down a letter, and we could add that for people who are eliminated at the convention. Is that?
Yeah.
And I know you put down here that it was an infraction if you didn't do this, or if a candidate
Yeah.
didn't.
That's in state code.
But what does that really mean? Because I know that even after primaries and others, there was a number who just say
Don't do it.
done.
Yeah.
An infraction is what?
Well,
Some say that if you do that, then you can't run for office in the next. I think it was reading in the next election cycle. But what is the infraction if you don't disclose?
well, I think the term infraction there is just an indication of the level of criminal penalty. It's not a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. It's an infraction.
Right.
But it would be the infraction of failing to, submit your
Punitive burden, though.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's probably one of those areas where
There really isn't one. I mean, if you were eliminated and you don't,
Yeah.
right?
local law
I
enforcement.
mean,
is
there's a lot
probably
of
too
places
busy
in
to-
our law that there isn't a correlating.
Just say shame on you for not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get disqualified, but if you've already been disqualified or lost, there's really not a lot they can do to you.
Right.
I guess you could, back to the convention, if you fail the convention, you could include that language as in subsection C of 2-5-3, that is eliminated at the convention and or primary election shall file. You could do it that way. Would that work? Would that meet?
Oh, you're up on the
Yeah, I'm back
the
up
top
on
one.
2-5-3.
I just think it needs to mirror exactly what happens after the primary, so it's consistent.
So for both the primary and the general, we have
and if it's
we have a-
consistent all the way.
we have its own section.
true,
So we
yeah.
could just give the convention its own section for those eliminated at
There you go.
convention.
Right.
I'm looking at Taylor here to see a friendly nod if that works for the clerk's office. I think it probably does.
If Taylor says yes, then that must be so.
Roseanne and Justin aren't here, right? They've worked a lot on this, but so.
There's a lot of election bills being heard this afternoon on the Hill.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot
They're
of the
busy.
folks are up there to hear those election bills.
It's supposed to be county days. We're missing county days.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
This is more important, right?
That's where, like I said, that's where Josh and Roseanne, I think, both are
Oh, okay.
up there.
In 2-5-3, the very, see that sub G, each elected county and member of local school board who resides in Utah County's term of office is greater than 2 years to file a signed campaign's financial statement containing the information required no later than December 31 of the second year of the term of office, reporting contributions as of 31 days before the date of this report. So while an individual's in office prior to the end of their second year, they have to file their
This
financial
is
statement.
designed to be kind of a midterm disclosure requirement, and I believe that's added into this new section as well.
So it kind of like as explanation, one of the things I asked Roseanne about is I said, okay, well, I originally ran for office as clerk auditor, right? And then I had money in a campaign account, but then I didn't have to do disclosures because we didn't have these rules midterm, but then I ran for commission. So what I will do is I will actually submit 2 campaign disclosures. I'll submit one under the clerk auditor campaign, and I'll show the balance that I had in my account. And then what I'll do is I'll say that I forwarded that balance to my commission campaign, and that will close out my clerk account. And then I'll file a second one for my commission that says I started with this much money in my account that was a donation from my clerk account. So that it shows that it'll kind of like wrap up my clerk campaign with a bow to show the extra money went into my commission campaign. And then my commission campaign will start with the donation from my clerk
You would do
campaign.
that right before convention. Right, that's how you tie them all.
Right, so I would do it just before convention this year. I will close out my clerk campaign.
Right.
And then show the opening of my commission.
Right. But in this case, because commission offices are 4 years, there's a filing at the 2-year mark.
At the 2-year mark.
Yeah. Which we've never had before, so that's kind of a new one. That's great.
Yeah, brings transparency.
Sure.
And brings us in compliance with state law.
Yeah, 2 good things.
2 good things.
I've read this a few times, but I think I've captured all the things that stood out to me. Any other insights either of you have?
Probably the last one. I'm trying to find it. It has. Maybe I'll try to explain it, Paul, and then you can find it with me. It was talking about when you file, if you've been in office, you have to file, from the previous time that you filed. In this case, it might be years, right? So
Yeah.
I think that wording to me was just a little bit.
So in 253 sub H, is
253 sub H.
the requirement that any of these campaign financial statements that are mentioned, that you have to report contributions deposited into your account since the last statement was filed. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep, that's
and
the
then
one.
also any expenditure since the last statement was filed. So trying to prevent any gaps, I think, from,
Right.
So it's not a wipe clean to start over the last time you filed, which could have been either at your 2-year mark, or if you're a 2-year, then it
Yeah.
would be at the end of your last cycle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're trying to just close any gap there might have been.
So it's not like quarterly, like federal races, or even yearly, like state, but it's just midway through your term.
Right. And then I did see on here, that if you have people that are volunteering, we don't have to do market value and that kind of stuff.
Was that up in the definitions
I think that was up in the definitions that you have.
of what a contribution is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or what a contribution does not include.
Right. You have
Were
volunteers.
those definitions copied directly from the state?
Well, I believe so, but I also think that they weren't changed. I think our definitions were the same.
Because I don't remember.
I can double check.
I don't remember having to ever disclose, exactly who volunteered
Right,
and for
yeah.
how long. Or,
Yeah. I believe that these definitions have remained consistent even from, 20 years ago or whatever. I think they've been the same. So the definition that the contribution does not include the services provided by volunteers, I think it's always been around.
Okay.
So it's
Just making sure.
that shouldn't be new, pretty sure.
Okay, and that is state statute. Okay.
So on the definitions, the contributions does not include, and under B2, it says money lent to the filing entity by a financial institution in the ordinary course of business. That is not included. So what does that exactly mean? Are you talking about you get a loan from the bank and you don't write that down as a contribution?
Right, and I think it also includes if you charge something on a credit card. In theory, if you charge it on a credit card and that's on a line of credit, in theory, that would be a loan on a line of credit, then you were paying that back on a
You
credit
would not
card.
have to include that as a contribution, so you could pay for stuff on a credit. I'm just trying to work it.
Right,
So if
yeah.
it's paid on a credit card.
You'd still have to
or-
put the expense on there. And then if you paid that credit card bill, that, you know, the expense would still be on there, but you don't have to, I don't think, count that as a disclosure.
I'm just curious about that because it says entity lent by the financial institution.
So if a candidate went and got a loan from the bank for $10,000, you would not have to document that as a contribution? And then as you do your expenses and you put an expense down, you'd have an imbalance.
So you'd
Have
have
an
to
imbalance of
basically just show that you were
expenses.
covering that yourself. No,
It
I
would
mean,
be- It would be your contribution.
Yeah,
But
you-
not a bank contribution because it's your own liabilities, so.
yeah, because the
bank's not
campaign
donating
isn't the
that
one
money
taking
to
out the
you.
loan, you are personally.
Right. So it's your contribution once you've taken the loan out from the bank.
But you know, I mean, I don't know if candidates probably do that, but most candidates, they put it as a loan to the, to the campaign, and then as they raise funds, sometimes they pay that
They pay
loan
themselves back.
They pay themselves back.
Right, but it's not a contribution from the bank. It's them using their own personal credit to withdraw a loan, and then they are putting that in the campaign, and then they're paying it back to themselves. So you don't report it as from the bank, you report it as from yourself.
So you'd still report it as a contribution, but it says does not include it as a contribution. But if you don't put it as a contribution, then you can't, there's no mechanism to pay it back to
Right,
yourself.
then you'd just be paying it out of pocket,
That's,
choosing to self-finance.
yeah, I guess so. Interesting.
I just double checked. That's in state code as well. Yeah, contribution does not include money lent to the filing entity by a financial institution in the ordinary course of business. So
I mean, it's state, so we're gonna leave it in. I mean, that's the way it is. I'm just trying to think around it a little bit, though. And if you're personally, you get a loan,
And it's in your name.
and it's in your name, and you put it down there as a financial institution giving you a loan, could a friend later on say, hey, I just want to give you $10,000? I mean, after the campaign's over with, and say, here's $10,000. Hey, thank you. I'm just going to now apply that to that loan. And that doesn't run through the cycle. Could that happen?
Well, if the friend's giving you money you mean like outside of your life as a politician,
Yeah.
candidate for office?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say generally speaking, how you pay that loan back is not going to hit, right?
Yeah.
But
It's still your personal obligation, and how you apply it, it's going to be up to you.
So if somebody comes and says, I want to contribute to your campaign $50,000, just a number, $50,000, but I don't want it to run through any names. Go get a loan, and then after it's all said and done, I'll give you $50,000.
Yeah, we couldn't give any advice or recommendation along those lines.
I know. It's
We
just,
will adopt the state code, but it would be up to
I
the
mean, we'll
individual.
adopt the state code. It's just,
Yeah, it'd be up to the individual to comply.
I mean, technically, they'd probably be against the law because it's, they're doing it outside the bounds of it. This is supposed to be so that you can see it, but
that seems similar to a friend saying, I'm not going to contribute to your campaign, but I'm going to give you as my friend $50,000. Now, if you want to contribute that money to the campaign,
I guess
right,
they can do
it's a
that.
similar thing. I think we would all agree that looks like a campaign contribution.
right.
A future investigation or two will probably sort that out.
Yeah.
We just don't want to see it. We don't want to deal with it.
Other than that, I didn't have anything else. There was nothing else that jumped out at me other than what we have just discussed. Do you have any other, Commissioner Gardner?
No. So, I mean, just to basically summarize, this will require a disclosure before convention and before and after the primary, and then before and after a general, and then halfway through a term.
Before your term, yes.
For convention and
Are we going to
if
add?
you're eliminated after convention.
Well,
If you're
after-
eliminated, because your last disclosure was before the convention, so you want to know how much you spent after. But if you're not eliminated, then you don't have to do that because you're going to be doing it for the primary.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have a mechanism to make sure that candidates who are running for the first time or unaware of this, when they file, they'll get this information, but is there a little summary sheet they can say, this is new changes, this is something you have to pay attention to? Maybe a calendar of sorts.
So there's a couple of things. Number one is we give it, the reason we want to do this now, this week, is because this is given to candidates when they file. And since that's next week, we want them to be able to have that.
Right.
On top of that, with the creation of the voter outreach coordinator position in the elections office, that's part of their job responsibilities, is to reach out to candidates and ensure that they know when something is due. So that is something that a service that the elections office has done. So they'll maybe send like an email reminder to everybody who's a registered candidate, hey, don't forget you have a disclosure. Beyond that, it's really up to the candidate to be able to reply.
So just to revisit the summary, Commissioner Gardner-Powers mentioned before and after the primary, but it's only before the primary and then after the primary if you're eliminated.
Right. So we're talking about, so after convention, it would only be if you're eliminated. After the primary, only if you're eliminated, because otherwise you will be reporting that
Before
in the next election.
Before the primary, before the general, so.
Correct. Okay, that makes sense.
So I don't have any further comments. Do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt the ordinance amending Article 2-5 of the Utah County Code with the change of the language after the convention.
For those who were eliminated.
For those that are eliminated, that it's the same as the others.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, we're on agenda number 9. Receive recommended proposals for RFP 2021-14 for the operation, maintenance, and management of North County Equestrian Park, and recommend a proposal for further negotiation or award of a contract.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Baxter, Purchasing Manager. This is a little bit unusual in that, sorry, we actually received a proposal from a private entity as well as a proposed interlocal agreement from American Fork, Highland City, and Lehigh City. So the committee evaluated both proposals by the same criteria, and thank you. So they evaluated both proposals by the same criteria, and they came up with a unanimous recommendation to go with the interlocal agreement.
Thank you. So I sit on that committee, and I know we were gonna, and it's kind of an interesting one, with the Equestrian Center, because originally we were gonna bring it back to the committee and do an evaluation, but with the cities being in there, it makes it really awkward. And so I thought it'd be best that we just go through this process without taking it back to the committee for a recommendation to the commission on it, just because the nature of the interlocal agreement is there. But I am fully in support of going forward and selecting. I know the options are we can discard the whole thing and try again, but this has been a long process to get here. And I think that there are some benefits, and I realize that there's going to have to be some discussion afterwards on how this all works out in contract form. But I'm prepared to move forward and select number 1, which is interlocal agreement with American Fork City, Highland City, and Lehigh City, to do the management and operations of the equestrian park, of course, with further negotiations on making sure that it works. Because I know Richard's on that committee with me. And you're okay with that? Okay. Yeah, with further negotiations, and I think that we got to have some serious conversation about what that looks like with Richard.
Richard Nelson, Public Works Director, in conversations with the cities as they prepared that. One of the things that they have yet to do, waiting to see what the commission's disposition was on this, they have not created the interlocal agreement between the three cities yet. They wanted to make sure that they're all in agreement on it, but they have not formalized an agreement between the three cities that would be separate from the agreement with the county. So there are some still agreement negotiations that need to happen both between the county and the three cities as a group, and the three cities amongst themselves. So.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, I noticed that because it mentions a city would do such and such, so there wasn't designated or rotations of some sort. Okay.
And I just appreciate, I know this is totally unusual because we don't have to go out to an RFP usually if we do any interlocal agreements between government entities, so it's kind of an odd one. But I think just on a transparency basis, it's nice to have this as open as it is and going through a committee process, not just the Equestrian Parks Committee, which we set up, but now with this selection committee.
Maybe just one other quick comment for you, because you'd mentioned the advisory board. We didn't use that because of the conflict there. What we did on the review committee for the RFPs, we had 4 staff members from the county. We also had Nick Hanks, who's the fairgrounds manager at Spanish Fork Fairgrounds,
yep.
And Christy, is that her name? You have it on there. She's the manager of the Salt Lake County Equestrian Center. Christy Freeland. So we had those 2 that were independent, outside people who have expertise in running equestrian parks.
Yep.
The only comment was that there was a differences in fees, which was leaning toward the interlocal agreement, but one of them, with it being closed on Sunday, there was some expression during the past several months by some individuals they would like to have volunteers operated on Sunday. We can go ahead and I'm fully supportive of the agreement as set now. I know there'll be additions later on, but I like to have some language allow the volunteers to operate on Sunday if they chose to do that, and if the cities would work that out between the 3 of them.
I think that'd be part of that ongoing negotiation with the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it came up several times these past few months, and that's why I bring that up as a highlight.
Want me to make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we receive the recommendations for the proposal as stated number 9, and that as a commission that we select number 1, which is to receive that, the award, I guess that's the correct word, for interlocal agreement with American Fork City, Highland City, and Lehigh City with pending negotiations.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes 3-0.
Commissioner, with regard to items 11, 12, and 18, which were moved to consent, I would suggest that we make a clarification to confirm that those were moved to consent to approve. The agenda items on each of those say approve or deny, but my understanding, I assume, is that the intent was to approve all of those.
Yes.
Yes, and that would be true for, I believe, all the ones that we've put on consent. There are several that with approvals and authorize. If there's no
Thanks.
debate on that.
Just for clarification.
Thank you for that clarity. Thank you. Okay. You're moving past a page or 2. We're on, did I miss anything? Are we on agenda number 32?
That's what I have as well.
Okay. Dave, you had mentioned something you want to touch on this item?
My only comment was that it's somewhat different than 30 and 31 because those were to continue for an additional 20-year period. This one is a referral to the Planning Commission and the Agriculture Protection Area Advisory Board to review and then submit their recommendations back to this board. The referral to those 2 bodies is required by statute, and so this is just to note the difference between, it's a little bit different because of that than 30 and 31.
What caught my attention was that last sentence, that last "or" in 32. So it seemed like to take action to continue for additional 20 years.
Right, and that would be the recommendation. After you get the recommendation back from those bodies,
Okay.
then you can take that, take
Okay.
action.
So on this one, a number of years ago, in state law, when I worked with Senator Dayton at the time to change that one word from a shall to a may so that we could do 30 and 31. But we also wrote it up so that if we received 5 or more letters of some sort of complaint,
Right.
and we put it in our own ordinance that we shall.
Right.
And I think that because we have that in a shall status, that we refer it back. Now, I know there, and I don't know if there's anybody here to speak to this today. Okay, there is an individual here that wanted to speak to us, and I think that I won't speak for you, but I think there's some concern on how that crosses. And so I think that we should at least listen to that and see if that works. But your task with me is going to be pretty hard since we have a shall in there. I'll just that we shall refer it back. All it does is go back, and then it would come before us again. But I know you've probably got some feelings on that shall that's in there, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon. My name's Larry Carson. I can't believe it's been 20 years. Time goes by pretty fast.
Right.
And, like I said, I'm not quite understanding the shall and that you're referring to. This is kind of new to me. I don't do this every day.
Can I explain it then?
Yes.
So we wrote into our ordinance, if there was less than 5 over a 3-year period of time, in the way of complaints or letters that came out, then it's easy for us to just easily move it on and say the agricultural protection just happens. And the reason why we did that is because the state law had a shall in there, which was a financial cost to the county because you have to go out there and notice, you got to put signs everywhere. And so there was a financial obligation. We asked the state to move that from a shall to a may. And as that, then if we don't have any complaints and it's still functioning as an agricultural, which your mink farming is, so that's not the question. If it's still functioning underneath that, it easily allows us to just adopt it and accept it and move it on to the next 20 years. But we put that in there because if there is some concern, then we want it to go back through the process with the advisory board and the planning commission to see if those are just letters of nuisance possibly, or if there's legitimate, and then it would come before us again. And that's the reason we said we shall. So we handcuffed ourselves to if we receive 5 or more within a 3-year period of time, any 3-year period of time during that 20 years. So it doesn't mean you can't receive more. It's just within a 3-year period of time that you see, letters coming in like that.
Yeah, and maybe I can explain, kind of what happened there. And I mean, this agriculture operation's been there for 30 years. And it's been ongoing for the 30 years. I mean, all of the zoning is correct. It's zoned that you can have that there. All the permitting has been taking place. I think, and most of those complaints, if you look, came within like a short period of time. And I think the public understands that they can make a puppet out of the health department. And so they repeatedly every day they called. And I think it was a little neighborhood group that got together and knew if they called, then they had to come out. And so I had all of the people, there was half a dozen people come out from the county. They looked at the operation, they analyzed everything, and they said, this is perfectly fine, but they still kept getting complaints. And finally, they would call me and say, we got another complaint, but after 5 complaints in a week's period, we've already been there, we understand what the public is really doing. And so they said, we're not going to come out anymore. And that's kind of what happened with the complaints. Everybody was there, all the county health department, everybody came, and they said, we can't see anything wrong with this. It was just the neighbors got together and understood what they could do, what the law was and knew if they called, somebody had to come out. So they just continued to call. Like I said, I mean, you know, it's still an ongoing operation. We maintain the standards of industry standards. It's all certified, and like I said, we'd like to continue to operate.
And, you know, I didn't look to see when those complaints came in, you know, within a period of time. I didn't look, I guess, that close to see when they came in. Peggy probably
It
knows.
was all within 2019.
All within 1 year?
Yes.
Yes, those were
In
all
fact,
around the
just a
June
couple
time
months.
of 2019. So that was the beginning of that 3-year time period that I had to look at.
Okay.
It was mostly June, it
And
looks
so
like.
before that, there wasn't any, it was just during
There
that?
may have been, but by statute, I don't have
Just
to
the
look
three,
at that,
yeah.
so I didn't request that. One of the complaints was to the sheriff's department, and it was a request for traps for mink, so that's kind of a roundabout complaint.
Okay. So wait a second. So you got to talk more about the roundabout complaint. Is that really a complaint or is that just a request?
Well, it would be like our number 6 complaints would be the 6th. They're already over the threshold with the health department. But yeah, it's someone called in. Apparently, the log that I have is that they requested a mink trap. And so if they're requesting a trap, then I just assume it's for mink because that's what it said. But we wouldn't actually know unless maybe we probably would have to grandma request that to get a person's name and to call them and talk to them.
But we're labeling that as a
That was
complaint.
the 6th though, so we already had 5. Even
Yeah.
if you disregard that one, there's still 5.
And the other 5 are,
Health department related.
okay.
There was 4 that they have to be from different individuals, and so we had 4 with names on them with different individuals, and then during a follow-up memo that health department did, it said that they actually received numerous complaints, and so I think they got so many they just quit writing them down.
Okay.
Okay, and so it was over that, so that's kind of where we were with
What was the
that.
nature of the health department complaints?
Those were all for odor.
Okay.
They were concerned with the odor, which I think was mainly around the feces and maybe some dead mink.
Okay. I personally bought a farm across the street from a dairy, and it smelled bad a lot, and we had a lot of flies. But I'm the one who bought land across the street from a dairy. So I never thought to complain to the health department because I bought a house across the street from a dairy.
You know, and that's really what's going on. I mean, you know, and I've lived in Utah my whole life. I've been in agriculture my whole life. And as this thing progresses down the road, people want to live in the county, you know, and it used to be 40 acres. And then you really had farmers around you. And then they changed it to 5 acres. And now you got city people that want to live in the county. And like yourself, they see the agriculture operation, but then even though I've done nothing wrong, if it smells a little bit to them, then it's my fault and I should move. And that's the attitude that's being faced with us with this agriculture operation, is people don't understand that I was here first. I met every zoning. The county zones it for this. Is it my fault, or is it the person that moves in fault that, you know, but they want to put the blame onto me?
No.
And that's what happened. They just all got together and they thought, you know, if we call every day, they have to go out. We'll just make it really bad for him.
So as we look at those complaints, I mean, the ones that complained about the odor, I just want you to know that I feel that we as a commission, we're not going to let that. I mean, I was a farmer myself. I get it. And I don't think that's going to overrule our decisions. Legally, we still have to refer it to this board. But I think, but if we look at things like complaints about, you know, people wanting a mink trap. I mean, if there were many complaints about the mink getting out and decimating people's chicken and turkey herds, then, you know, then there's damage done. I think that we look at those types of things differently. So I think we look at things reasonably, and I'm personally very pro-farmer, and we've voted very pro-farmer, but we are still required to refer this to the committee. That's just the law requires us to refer it. But like I said, that doesn't mean that we're by any means taking away your farming ability.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But moving forward, this isn't going to go away, you know.
I think you should bottle it.
So like I said, and the thing that makes me feel good about the whole process and the complaints is that one day I had 6 people from Utah County come out. And at the end of the day, they all were fine with what was going on. So it wasn't really that I had a problem in my operation. It was the people that had moved in there was the problem.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other points that need to be discussed on this? Bill, do you have anything else to discuss on this?
No, I mean, I think we are, and we put the 5 in there for a reason, and it could be any number. It was just a number that we threw in there, just so that if there was legitimate complaints, that we could actually address them.
Yeah, and I
we
think we'll
didn't
look at
want
the nature of
nuisance
those.
stuff.
Like I said, if it's things like, well, the combine runs at 2 a.m. Well, if it's harvest season and it's going to rain tomorrow, the combines are going to run at 2 a.m. That's what happens when you live near a farm. You know, if it's the smell, like we understand those sorts of things. We're looking for damage or other types of things. And so I think we'll take those into account.
And, you know, and mink are a federally listed animal in the sense for farming. They're a farming animal, and that was done years and years and years ago. And so we got to be. I know we're pro that way. I mean, you talk about dairy farmers. My grandfather was a dairy farmer, and he used to say, I'd say, "Oh, Grandpa, it stinks down here." And he says, "That's the smell of money." That was crazy, but anyway, that's what he said. Okay. You get used to it.
Absolutely. And you put up fly traps.
That's
you
right.
You put up fly traps.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 32 with referring to the committee as per statute.
And I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Just make sure and go through that process, Larry. Make sure it's okay.
Okay. Item 34, approve
All right.
property tax actions.
Darn it. All right, hang on one second. My computer timed out. So I would like to look at one item. It's the parcel item on here. And as I read down through it, I'll try to summarize what I think happened. The property, excuse me, I'll get back over here. I saw Maureen look at me like I wasn't speaking in the microphone. The property owner paid the taxes in 2020, but one of the numbers was off. I think it was last digit that was off. And so the taxes were paid on this parcel. And she states that there was multiple, up to 9 or so parcels that were in there, and then she found out soon that was wrong, and so she came back to the county and asked, "Well, can I just get that money transferred over into the right accounting?"
That's right.
And was told that can't happen. And I understand that. I understand that I don't understand. Anyway, I don't need to know all the differences, but for some reason that can't happen. And so she was going through a process of communicating with the county. In the meantime, the property that it was erroneously attached to sold, and somebody got $1,500 on a rebate. Because they apparently overpaid. So she then said, "Wait a second," and I would do the same thing. I think all of us would, right? Would say, "Wait a second. What can we do on this? I paid this. We can't get it transferred." I communicated that, and And then now the property sold that it was attached to, and now that's gone. And is there any way we can correct this or get them to pay? And there's no real mechanism for the county to do anything like that, and I get that too. So
We were notified of it before the sale.
well, from what she says, she said yes. Before the sale, we were notified that there was a problem.
Right, but
Yeah.
we didn't have a
But
way to correct it.
There's no vehicle for us to correct that. So now we sit with an individual who paid their taxes in their mind with one number off. Somebody else got a benefit of approximately $1,500 in a rebate, and now she finds herself delinquent in tax. So I wanted to bring that up here. I don't know. I don't really have a proposal on what we should do. I know we can do just about anything that we'd like, but I thought that we should at least have a discussion on it, because I think that's a dilemma that is really unusual. And so, what can we do?
How have we handled this type of thing in the past?
Well, this one is kind of peculiar. It hasn't come up very often. Historically, because there was not a county error, but it was the error of the taxpayer.
Right.
Our recommendation is the same here, and I imagine that's how. If this has happened in the past, we probably would have handled it. At least our recommendation would have been this consistent with this.
Yeah, there's no county error on this, obviously. But is there any way that when something like this ever happens again, that there can be a solution? I mean, it's now happened. I'm just wondering if there's a way to cure it once we find out about it.
Right, like as soon as we were notified.
Yeah.
The fact that we couldn't reverse that payment, why?
Or that attachment, because the
that
payment came
attachment.
in, went into our account, and then we were the ones that said it's attached to this property. I'm just wondering how we.
Like, why couldn't we reverse that?
Undo that? I
Right.
don't understand that part. Why we can't undo it?
You might want to just continue this item and see if Chris could come in. Here's the money man. He knows all the details.
Hey, Kerry McConnell, Treasurer's Office. To your point, Commissioner Lee, has that happened before? It's rare that somebody makes a payment on a wrong serial number. And this timing is their problem here. Yeah. She pays it on 11/29 or 11/20. I've got it right here. Taxes are due November 30th. She pays it on the 25th. Doesn't get notified until December 29th of the delinquent postcard. And I believe the warranty deed gets recorded on the transfer of property. She has in her notes, it gets transferred on January 7th of 21. So a week later, this thing gets transferred. Normally, we would ask the taxpayer and say, look, I'm sorry, this has happened. Taxes were paid in error. Here's the contact. You try to work it out with the property owner. Like I said, this is so rare, it doesn't happen. There are safeguards in place. She went online to our instant payments or to our online tax payment portal, where the taxpayer enters the serial number and hits enter, and the name pops up with the dollar amount. And I realize she probably entered, what you say, 8 or 9 of them. Yeah. But if you're add new serial number, plug the serial number, enter, name. Well, that isn't my name. This is and the dollar amount doesn't match either. There could be some verification on their end as well. But obviously it didn't happen. It got paid. Timing happens. Yeah, I would say, hey, contact these individuals. Oh, they've sold the property. We even went so far, I believe, if you look in the email threads and trying to help her find the 2 individuals if they had other property in the county and they don't have any property in the county. To say, hey, let me get you some contact information. Contact them and maybe you can work it out through them. They did. They had a mortgage. It got reconveyed the first part of February, meaning chances are they had a mortgage. And so they did get that rebate that you mentioned, that there was something there, but there was never a double payment. So once that payment got made on the 25th, mortgage company usually pays, but they have that number pulled prior to that mid-November to make that November 29th or November 30th payment. There was never an overpayment. We would note that in the system, you know, and we could give them that information. That has happened before. Oh, you paid the wrong one. Let me get you back out to the tax service company or to the mortgage company, and generally they work that out. But the timing on this was just tight, and there just doesn't seem to be a lot of recourse, at least in our office, or at least by the county. So maybe there could be some guideline. If this
So
happens.
Carrie, is there any ability when, into the future, I realize it can't be done in the past, is there any ability in the future when this comes up as, you know, it was paid erroneously to this account over here, to just undo that and pull it back over and put it in the right one?
You know, I think
Crazy to me that we can't do that. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and they re-verified, and it was the wrong parcel and the wrong amount. But as I look at that, and I totally understand what you're saying, but my mother had 7 strokes at age 47, and there was about a 5-year period of time that we were coming in and helping her clean up messes, and she'd have reconfirmed 3 times the wrong number because she was struggling. And I have a brother on the autism spectrum, and I got to tell you, it is very difficult to work through him. I mean, I can see it happening. And if the person contacts us and says, I paid on the wrong parcel, like, I understand we have safeguards in place, but it is kind of weird to me that we can't just reverse that. If they can prove through the, you know, a canceled check or a bank statement that it was them that made the payment, they can show us, this is me, I made the payment on the wrong parcel. It is really weird to me that we can't change that.
Well, and say if we did back that out, December 29th and December 30th, back that payment out, applied it, then the serial number paid in error now has a delinquency, which I believe the 3 of you would say, hey, let's waive the penalty, get it done right, it was paid in error, I'm sending you a delinquent postcard saying now you're delinquent, maybe I've got some time to work it out through my mortgage company to get that paid. But
it's difficult for sure.
The timing was I assume that the people still own it. Yeah, and hey, go ahead. We would never have this discussion.
Right.
But since it was sold, a week later after the delinquent postcard was received, there wasn't really anybody to talk to. Now I'm talking to a new owner that's saying, no, this was cleared up at, you know, I got a warranty deed, and this was, you know, this was paid. I don't owe anything. I didn't get anything. I didn't get any type of an excess or a windfall or something like that.
Is this something we should continue a week or two to see if what other options there might exist? And that we could spend some time maybe individually to work.
I think when I think about it, the only option that I could see would be if you abated that dollar amount of this individual's taxes on this parcel. That would be the county and the taxing entities eating the error, but it would give this one owner full credit for the amount that she paid, even though she paid it on the wrong parcel. It was not paid on her parcel. But if you abate that dollar amount, then that would make her whole.
So, Carrie, if I'll do an if then, if the property wasn't sold, you know, in that time frame, then what would happen?
I think that some information we could give her, Miss Parcell, the information and say, hey, these are the owners. This is the address. She would have to reach out to them and say, look, I paid the taxes in error. Recognize that you might have a mortgage. You know, try to work it out and say, you know what, I paid yours. I need that money back.
Really?
So there would be an excess in escrow.
Right.
There would be the money there sitting in escrow.
Their escrow already paid their taxes. That's how they got a rebate, right?
But didn't pay. There wasn't anything due, right? And so the parcel that was paid in error, chances are, I'm assuming that there's an escrow.
Right.
And it's a home, and there's a note on it, so chances are that there's money being held in escrow. So there would be some money sitting in that escrow account that never made the payment. So I would hit you up and say, you know, I'd have paid your taxes in error. I know you've got, if you have an escrow, let me get that contact information and let them pay my taxes and try to make that even.
Yeah, so she would have to
She would have to
negotiate with them and out of their good graces. Otherwise, they could say, whatever. Tough.
Well, I guess the other thing she could do is why not, okay, then go to the recorder's office and file a lien.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there would be something to say, well, if I can't get it out of you now, I'm going to get it out of you when you sell your home. I need to, you know, that lien would need to be released. So there may be something along there. And that's why we decided to help her. It's like, to some degree, it's like, here's the names. Let's look. We did a search in our land system and said, no, neither one of those individuals ended up buying property in the county. If so, maybe you need to go talk to an attorney and see, or a title guy and say, let's file a lien.
Yeah, and if they sold the home, they may have gotten a rebate out of their escrow account.
Well,
They did.
Yeah, there's some excess there, certainly.
So, but there's no vehicle for us to say.
Other than what he's suggesting.
I mean, there's no vehicle that we can just turn right around and say, we're pulling that back. You know, I mean, credit cards, you can say, hey, I didn't make that payment or whatever, and then, you know, you redo it. I'm just wondering if there's no vehicle for us to, when we recognize that, to say, we're going to actually pull that out of here and put it back in the right spot. We don't have anything like that.
Well, we could certainly back a payment out, right? We could back a payment out of the system and say, okay, now I've got to put this payment somewhere else. I've got to move from one column to the other. And so, yeah, there is a way in our current tax collection system to back a payment out. But here again, it comes down to a timing issue. She gets the postcard on December 29th, warranty deed transfer. Now I realize that it was recorded in the county. It probably didn't get a name change till 3 months later, but there was still a name change that happened. I think the timing of the sale of the property is the thing that's unique about this versus maybe one that's happened in the past to say, you know what, I paid on the wrong one. Let's see if you can work it out with the individual and collect that money from them due to my error. I believe the timing of this is the problem here.
Yep.
Because it had already changed hands.
Well, in a week it would have. Well, yes.
Yep.
So it sounds like the proposal is we could just credit her that amount, $1,557.
I would make a motion to continue this. Let's continue it. I would say 2 weeks so we can think about it, look at it, maybe. Because I agree. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to the abatement. I feel like it's a crazy series of unfortunate events.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we'll continue the that item.
So I think we need to approve the rest of them, and then
Right.
probably pull that one out.
But pull that one out, and we'll continue that one for 2 weeks, but approve the rest. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor that we approve all accepting that item, and we pull that out for continuation for 2 weeks. All in
Can you
favor?
identify the one that you're
Parcel.
pulling off?
Parcel number 63413. Okay, so continue 2 weeks. And that will bring us into March. So again, that's approving all listing, accepting that parcel 63413 and continue that one for 2 weeks. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes 3-0. That moves us to item number 39.
Who's 39?
39. The resolution between interlocal agreements between Utah County and North Fork Special Service District.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you again. So this item was brought sort of through an uncommon process into our request to have an interlocal agreement for ARPA grant funding. The American Rescue Plan Act makes available federal dollars for different kinds of projects. This is a well that North Fork Special Service District needed to drill that required some ARPA funding. I've been talking while we've been in this meeting with our grants administrator, Peter Brown, to clarify some of the language here. So what we are recommending, the reason we held this one to discuss a little further was that there was language that was raised today that was requested by the auditing department related to single audits and subrecipient monitoring. So when we get federal grants, if you look at section 5.5 of the agreement, you'll see where we put in some language about federal grant subrecipient monitoring, and there's even more elaborate language that we have in a new version. So what we're going to recommend that the commissioners do, if you're open to it, is that you approve this agreement subject to the finalization of this language, which we actually have finalized. I'm sending to Alice here in a few minutes that she can get you a version that has a little bit more comprehensive language. I'm happy to read it to you, but this is some...
Just the one that you put here on our, is
it
it
is
different than
probably a
that?
third version. So that's the second version that includes, there's a third version coming. So we're recommending that you approve it subject to this. I can read you this additional language if you're interested. It's about 5 additional paragraphs about what that subrecipient monitoring really means, that we're required as a pass-through entity, we're required to make their records available to the U.S. Inspector General and a variety of different things based on the Single Audit Act, the federal government rule that we have some additional language that applies to that. So do you want me to read it? Do you want me to just recommend that you approve it subject to finalization? You'll get a chance to look at this last version.
No, is that just for ARPA grant subrecipients, or is that what we're going to do for the CBDG grant subrecipients as well?
I think this applies to all federal grants, so its language is very similar to some that we have used with respect to the CARES grant, CARES Act, and so we have not applied it to the ARPA funding of this particular project as well at the request of our grants administrator and others in the clerk auditor's office. Okay. So just an issue that wasn't raised until today. We've made a little bit of an adjustment to the agreement. I think you'll be comfortable with the language. You'll get a chance to see it. My recommendation is that you approve it subject to this additional language about subrecipient monitoring requirements.
How long is it? Is it just a couple paragraphs or what?
It's a few paragraphs, yeah. I'd be happy to read it.
Why don't you read it? And that way we don't have to.
So what it says is subrecipient requirements. County will monitor the funding of this project by district pursuant to 2 CFR 200 and according to Utah County Federal Awards Policy and Procedures. This includes the monitoring of contract procurement and expenditures and compliance related to 2 CFR 200. By virtue of terms and conditions of the Single Audit Act, 31 U.S.C. sections 7501 through 7507 and the related provisions of the Uniform Guidance 2 CFR 200.303 regarding internal controls, with other citations regarding subrecipient monitoring and management, and subpart F regarding audit requirements, ARPA funds received through this agreement make district a subrecipient of the federal grant. District is a subrecipient of the grant monies and as such shall have no authorization express or implied to bind county to any agreements, settlements, liabilities, or understandings whatsoever, and agrees not to perform any acts as agent for the county, except as herein expressly authorized and set forth. District as a subrecipient shall be responsible for the payment of all income tax and social security amounts due as a result of ARPA funds received from the county for these necessary infrastructure-related purchases. Persons employed by the county and acting under the direction of the county shall not be deemed to be employees or agents of district. All districts' records with respect to any matters covered by this agreement shall be made available to the county, the state of Utah, and the Comptroller General of the United States or any of their authorized representatives. Failure of recipient to comply with the above requirements will constitute a violation of this agreement, may result in the withholding of future payments. Local governments or nonprofit organizations that spend $750,000 or more in federal total financial assistance from all sources in the district's fiscal year shall have a single audit completed. All subrecipients, regardless of single audit eligibility, will make all pertinent financial records available for review, monitoring, or audit in a timely manner to appropriate officials of the federal granting agency, the state of Utah, the county, and/or the general accounting office. To comply with 2 CFR 200.331, the county as the pass-through entity is providing the following required information. And then we have a little table that shows the subrecipient's name, the DUNS number, the federal award identification number, the federal award date, the sub-award period for performance, the amount of funds that are granted, $3 million, the total obligated federal funds from all sources, $1,500,000, with $1,500,000 as a pass-through from federal to state to county. So a total amount, $3 million. Federal award project description, Aspen Grove Forest Site, well site. Federal awarding agency, United States Treasury, name of pass-through entity, Utah County Government, contact information for awarding officials. That's Peter Brown, our finance manager, and grants administrator. And then a CFDA number, and that this award is not for research or development and is not an indirect, there's no indirect cost rate for the federal award. So that's what's in there. It's just kind of boilerplate stuff that the federal government requires, but we wanted to make sure that it was in this version based on an issue that was raised today. So we recommend you approve.
When did this come up today?
This came up today in the agenda system when our grants administrator had an opportunity to look at it, and the clerk auditor's office, and say we would like to make sure that this language gets included, to be very specific about the prior language that you see in front of you covers just kind of the general obligations that will comply with CFR 200. This is saying this is what that actually requires. So it's all very explicit in the agreement now. Recommend that you approve. And happy to answer any questions.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the signing as stated in number 39 on our regular agenda with the addition.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. What passes 3-0.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Okay. Item 40, authorize a change to the staffing plan of the Admin Support Division of the Utah County Sheriff's Office to upgrade 1 full-time career service Deputy Sheriff 2 enforcement position to 1 full-time career service Sergeant Administration position. And that would go for the, and add 1 position of job code and delete 1 position of another job code.
That all makes complete sense, right?
I followed it.
There is it says in the admin support division, it's actually in the enforcement division.
I'm in support of this. I just wanted to, as it's just a little bit outside of what we've done or what we have agreed to do. That the conversation, as I talked with Ralph too, was that this would be one of those top priorities in going into the budget cycle for next year. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make sure that we had that conversation. I mean, I'm in support of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, this was
here.
Actually in the budget cycle last year and didn't get funded, and
It was one of his top priorities
yeah,
as well.
It was then too. So we asked for it, we didn't get it, so we've done some scrambling because we really need it, and this was the way we could make it happen for now.
And this is all paid for with the existing budgets that's in this current year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, minus whatever it is. How much was the difference? Like $3,000?
$3,056.
3,000.
Yeah, $3,056.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in full support. I saw this was one of your priority asks in the last budget cycle, and I supported it then, and I continue to support it now. I think for the $3,056, it's very much, and considering it's one of your top priorities, I support that.
Okay. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we, let me get the right one, authorize the change in staffing plan as stated in number 40 on our regular agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Number 40, authorize an increase to the staffing plan in the assessor's office, 1 full-time career service, commercial appraiser, 2, 4 full-time career service appraiser 2 residential positions, 1 full-time career senior support specialist position, and add 1 position job code, and then grade 512, add 4 positions. We'll go on the others, 1 other position.
Wait, can you say that again?
Yeah, Chris.
Maybe I should just scratch reading all of these.
So if there's any questions, I'm going to have Ben Stanley come up and reiterate those 5 paragraphs.
You can read it for us.
It sounded just about like that. So, yeah, we're here today because the budgeting process, we had recommended RFPing this process. And during the budgeting process, we identified through a similar RFP that over a period of time, this is probably going to cost us about $6.5 million.
Period of time being how long?
5 years.
5 years.
So, and that was based on an RFP that was awarded back in Maryland of a similar size county with a very similar type of project. And that was implemented back in June, so it's a recent RFP. Since we have to submit our budgets in the September timeline, September, October, we were also pursuing what would it cost to actually do this internally, and could we do it internally? And that came out as we were working through the budget also. We've been working with IT, and IT has come up with, in their GIS department, a process that would actually eliminate some FTE expenses if we did it in-house. So based on that, we estimate that we could probably save about $1.5 million in that 5-year period by bringing it in-house.
So it would go
the same 5 years.
So it would be
Those same
five, so
5 years.
basically it would be 5 million instead of 6.5 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that includes salaries, benefits, office space, computers, everything?
That's, yeah. So that was all wrapped up into the project RFP.
Yeah.
And so breaking those components back out, yes, that would be the same.
Now, I do know that in the IT division, we've had significant issues with staffing, meaning that they have positions, but they're having a hard time filling those positions. Will that impact this at all?
That is
I just want to make
true.
sure you have the ability to get the work done.
That's true on the IT side. In the GIS division, that's the resources we're tapping into.
Okay, and they do
don't
have the bandwidth.
They
I
don't have that similar.
I don't doubt they have the talent to do it for $1.5 million less, because I've worked with them and they've been able to do that. I just want to make sure they have the bandwidth.
And we had them build a prototype. We tested the prototype, and it is yielding results that look promising. So we're still not sure if it's actually going to work, but we're like 90% there.
Okay.
So this proposal is to bring it back in-house to save them funding. However, if we don't, if we're not successful, then we're going to have to go back to an alternative. And if we're not successful, the funding that we're using to fund what's proposed today is going to have to be eliminated, the positions that we're talking about today, in order to go back to the original funding in order to do an alternative. So, yeah, I just want to make that clear that we're not really going to run parallel projects. This is one project or the other, and it's the same amount of funding.
So for purposes of a motion on this, then to approve the increase in the staffing plan with this, but would we put words in there like a contingency? What wording would you like in there so we can have that flexibility?
You could
tie it to.
You could tie it to.
So the staffing plan is tied to the funding of the funding source. How would you like us to do that? The project.
Yeah, you could tie it to a project.
And that way you'd have that flexibility, like we talked about, so that if it doesn't go the direction you want, you can still be able to eliminate those positions without the consequences that we normally have through our process to then move. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a window, a time frame that you'll know where this is going?
We should know by the third quarter of this year if it's going to be successful or not. So we'll know before the next budget cycle happens.
Yeah.
So
great. So by the end of September, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we authorize the increase in the staffing plan as stated, with the funding tied to the projects or to the project. I'm sure there's multiple projects in there, but tied to the project for flexibility purposes if needed.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That passes 3-0. September 30th. No. Okay, we have no closed items, so we can go to public comment.
Eldon stepped out. Someone want to let Eldon know that public comments open?
Snooze, you lose.
Maureen, do we have anybody online by any chance that I don't see here? Oh, this is disappointing.
Not disappointing. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Now, wait a minute.